David has been sent out to fight battles, and Saul remembers his promise to give whoever killed Goliath his daughter as a wife. We'll pick up the story from there. I'm Ken Godevanis, and this is Digging for Scriptural Gems. Thanks for joining us as we continue our study of the Old Testament's book of 1 Samuel. Today, looking at chapter 18, verses 17 to 30. His eldest daughter's name was Merab, and all Saul said he wanted in exchange was that David would continue to be a valiant warrior. But in his heart, he was thinking, I won't kill him. I'll let the Philistines take care of that. David, on the other hand, said, Who am I to be the king's son-in-law? And Merab was given to Adriel, the Maholathite, as wife. One commentator suggests that Saul did this to make David jealous. And if so, does that imply that Merab was beautiful? We don't know. His second wife, Michal, however, loved David, and it appears that Father Saul liked the idea, thinking that she would entrap him romantically, weaken him somehow, and allow the Philistines to defeat him. So he impatiently told David, For a second time, you may be my son-in-law. Although I must point out that most LXX original Greek text manuscripts omit this last sentence. In fact, to help convince him, he ordered his servants to speak to David and to tell him how much Saul delighted in him and loves him, encouraging him to accept his offer of his daughter. David still turned it down, saying he wasn't worthy of that and or couldn't afford the customary dowry that was normally paid to the bride's father, given his lowly family status. And the servants told that to Saul. The king, in turn, responded that he was to be told, that is, David was to be told, that no financial dowry was required except for 100 Philistine foreskins to take vengeance on the king's enemies. That seems to have delighted David, not realizing that Saul was hoping that in trying to get those foreskins, he would be killed. Verse 27 tells us that before the offer expired, David and his men went out and killed not 100, but 200 Philistines. Their foreskins were given to the king. He delivered double what was requested, and David took Michal as his wife. Seeing how his daughter loved David and that the Lord was with him, Saul feared him even more. Again, this last part is omitted from the LXX manuscripts. The NET says Saul continued to be at odds with David from then on. And David did even better in his next battles with the Philistines. And just to be consistent, this whole last verse, verse 30, is also omitted from the LXX manuscripts. We'll stop here at the end of the chapter and go digging for scriptural gems. We note that Michal loved David. What we do not know until much later in the story, stay tuned for future episodes from 2 Samuel, is whether or not Michal was also attracted to David's love for God. That's a critical consideration for anyone getting married, then and now. We ignore this at our own peril. Secondly, we note that Saul's request of 100 foreskins of the Philistines was well designed. It was a dangerous and difficult request. It was intended to goad David into going after those uncircumcised Philistines, something that David called Goliath himself. That is, it appealed to his own feelings about the enemies. And it was designed to make the rest of the Philistines furious at David, not only for killing their men, but because he was desecrating their bodies. We need to be careful that when we're getting an offer from an ungodly person, we aren't trapped by the way they present it. We need to make sure it is right before God and not just appealing to our senses or desires or even our strengths. Also, we're never to rush to accept something we're not 100% comfortable with. If it's meant for us to have, it will be there the next day or the next week. Thirdly, we would have thought that seeing David's continual and growing success on the battlefield and with the Lord, Saul would have gotten the message from God, "Leave my man alone." But instead, he dug in even further. I'm sure you've come across such people in your life. I know I have a few times. They never give up. We need to recognize that they are like that, and we need to recognize that early in the circumstances of our dealings with them, and to guard against it as God directs. Sometimes I feel our immoral leaders are like that. When they're caught being wrong or lying, they dig in. We need to be in prayer for God's protection on our lives and for their change of heart. Finally, we note that for all the evil planned against him by Saul, David came out victorious, successful in battles and loved by the people, and above all, honored and protected by God. That is the hope of the Christian. Know our enemies, turn them over to our God, and depend fully on his saving power. We come out the winners in the long run. So far, Saul has tried to kill David himself, and he has tried to arrange for the Philistines to kill him. Both times he's failed. So who else could he employ to do so? We'll find out next time. Join us for that study. In the meantime, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you'll be notified of all our posts. Or you can email me. My email is at the end of the video, and I'll put you on a BCC list where you'll get an email notifying of our next post, and no one else will see your email address. Share these videos with others so others may study them, and then write to us. We ask some questions. You may have some questions. Let's communicate. And above all, keep on studying God's Word. Finally, I want to encourage you to go onto Facebook and put in "Digging for Scriptural Gems" and join our Facebook group.